يا من صليت بكل الأنبياء، يا من في قلبك رحمة للناس، يا من ألفت قلوبا بالإسلام، يا حبيبي يا شافعي يا رسول الله، بأمي وأبي فديتك سيدي، صلاة وسلام عليك يا نبي. حبيبي يا محمد أتيت بالسلام والهدى محمد، حبيبي يا محمد يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد، يا من حليت حياتنا بالإيمان، يا من بجمالك علمت الإحسان، يا من نورت قلوبنا بالقرآن، يا حبيبي يا شافعي يا رسول الله، بأمي وأبي فديتك سيدي، صلاة وسلام عليك يا نبي. حبيبي يا محمد أتيت بالسلام والهدى محمد، حبيبي يا محمد يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد.
It's my distinct honor to host this iftar again with my Malia family. I can tell you that putting this evening together was a lot of work, but well worth it. And I wait for this event all year to engage in my favorite activity, public speaking. So here I am. We have two very special guests with us, U.S. Attorney Selinger for the District of New Jersey and First Assistant Attorney General Lindsay Rotolo. So welcome. I request that everybody kindly stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the fallen law enforcement heroes, especially one of our very own we lost this year, retired Edison Police Sergeant Joe Luistro, who was also the immediate past president for the New Jersey Asian American Law Enforcement Association. Thank you. I now invite Malia Chaplain Dr. Shadi Al-Masri, Imam of the New Brunswick Islamic Center, to the stage for a prayer and to say a few words regarding the holy month of Ramadan and the significance of doing the right thing, even when it comes at a personal cost from the Islamic perspective.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome everybody to our annual iftar. I think a lot of times that discipline and belief is taken for granted in the things that we see around us, and one of them is in the history of whistleblowers and doing the right thing. We take for granted that you could do that. We take for granted that there's certain things that are safety measures that we expect to take place, but it's nice for us to realize that there are some people who went through great sacrifices to make these things happen. And one person that I want to make mention of is a woman back in 1984 who was working with GE in producing nuclear fuels. Her name is Vera English, and she did something very, very simple, something very basic. She realized that very highly radioactive spillage was being worked with, and then people were not cleaning up. As a result of that, other people who would work in those spaces would then be exposed to these radioactive spillages, which could cause hair loss, it could cause ruined teeth, and of course, it can cause cancer, and it can be passed down to your kids. So she brought it up to her bosses back in GE, and they brushed her aside. She then poured some of this radioactive waste on a table and documented days that went by in which nobody cleaned it up. She then took that document to her bosses, and they said, look, our own employees are going to get cancer from this, and their kids are going to get cancer. To her surprise, she was dismissed and she was fired. This is before the concept of whistleblowers had any type of protection. She's one of the pioneers. She's one of the people who sacrificed. So she took it to the Department of Health, which always worked alongside with nuclear production facilities. There, it took her about a couple months to know that she could do that, and they said, well, sorry, it's a 30-day limit. You passed the 30-day limit, so there's nothing we can do for you. She then sued GE for wrongful termination, and her lawsuit went all the way up to the Supreme Court, which awarded her a financial sum of money, but also set a precedent that someone cannot be fired for reporting the breaking of the law, because cleaning up this radioactive waste is a state law. You cannot be fired for reporting to your bosses that the law is being broken in our company. So these people, they're always human beings with stories behind the world that we live in that we take for granted. Take for granted these things are possible. And there are countless other heroes, but she was one of these pioneers in establishing this kind of whistleblowing. And the National Whistleblower Center made a short movie about it. There's even a center for whistleblowers called the National Whistleblower Center that highlights these people, that protects them, and they were involved in writing an amicus brief to help her win her case with the Supreme Court, and they made a little movie about her too. So with that, I wanted just to bring up these kinds of stories because there are always human beings behind the good things that we see in the world, and hopefully we'll see more of that tonight. Thank you.
I would like to move the program forward by acknowledging some of our federal law enforcement executives in attendance today, and then our state partners. We welcome the U.S. Attorney Philip Schillinger, accompanied by Assistant U.S. Attorney Vikas Khanna, and the Chief of Civil Rights Division. I'm not sure if Mr. Campion is here yet. ATF SAC Brian Miller, U.S. Marshal Juan Matos, Secret Service SAC Aaron Hartley, former Secret Service SAC Jose Riera, and FBI Acting ASAC Charles Simpson. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us. We truly appreciate the commitment that the U.S. Attorney's Office has made to the Muslim community. His office has assured us that we're not alone in these troubling times, and that hate, bias, and bigotry no matter where it comes from, will not be tolerated here at home. U.S.A. Schillinger has publicly stated that Muslims, like anyone else, have a constitutional right to speak on matters of concern to us without fear of reprisal. And it is the very assurance of the fundamental rights as Americans that we oblige him, and for his sense of fairness and justice. I would like to request U.S. Attorney Philip Schillinger to the stage to say a few words.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Thank you, Lieutenant, and thank you to Malaya for inviting me to speak tonight. I am honored to be able to join you, to break fast with you, and to celebrate with excellent food, good company, and good conversation. It's especially important at moments like this to enjoy such opportunities amid all of the difficulties and conflicts that we face today. Emotions certainly run very high on the subject of Gaza and the Middle East. There are people in New Jersey who are concerned about loved ones and friends in that region, and they're also concerned about the repercussions here in New Jersey in terms of personal safety and incidents of hate and extreme incidents of hate. We've recently witnessed two terrible tragedies. The stabbing of a young Palestinian American boy and his mother in Chicago, the shooting of three Palestinian American males in Vermont. And these crimes are abhorrent. The perpetrators must be held accountable. And apart from state charges that are currently pending, the federal government is exploring whether hate crime charges are appropriate. Hate crimes are often designed to instill fear and to threaten communities. We're certainly aware that there are some in the Muslim and Palestinian and Arab communities who feel that law enforcement may be here only to protect some but not all communities and to target others. And I am certainly here to state tonight that our mission in law enforcement is to protect all communities in New Jersey and to protect the civil rights of all New Jersey residents. New Jersey is possibly the most diverse state in the country. We have a large Arab, Muslim, Palestinian population and a large Jewish population as well. And each and every person is entitled to feel safe and secure in their community and also when they travel across the state and the country. The federal statutes that criminalize hate crime do not distinguish based on ethnicity or religion. They protect all ethnicities and religions, and so do we. Standing up to hate is central to the mission of the U.S. Attorney's Office. The Department of Justice was founded in the wake of the Civil War when the KKK was terrorizing Black Americans in the South, attacking and murdering Black Americans, burning, looting Black Americans' homes, their businesses, and their churches. And in response to this, the Department of Justice brought hundreds of cases under the Civil Rights Act. And today, combating acts of hate are just as urgent. The Department of Justice is working tirelessly to investigate and prosecute hate crimes. Since 2021, the department has prosecuted, charged more than 80 individuals for hate crimes, has secured convictions of more than 80 individuals for hate crimes. These cases take time. Just last year, one individual was sentenced for setting fire to an Islamic center, and another was charged with setting fire to a mosque. And we at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey have not hesitated to bring charges when individuals attack religious communities or houses of worship, whether under the federal hate crime statute or under other federal authorities. Some people have concerns about their ability to express their views on the Gaza conflict without fear of prosecution. In America, there's a right to free speech. Everyone has the right. Everyone has the right to advocate for their position, to give their opinions, to state their beliefs. So expressing your support for Palestinian rights without more is certainly not a federal criminal offense. We will respect and honor the right of free speech. So let me just conclude by saying we stand with the Muslim community as we stand with all communities of faith and all people of goodwill to protect their freedoms and equal justice under the law. But for us to take action, we need to know about problems. So report incidents of hate, report incidents of bullying, report instances of employment discrimination, report instances where local officials obstruct the right to construct mosques. And if you do that, the federal authorities, along with our state, federal, and local partners, many of whom are here with us tonight, we will do our best to invoke the appropriate authorities to protect the civil rights of all of our citizens. So thank you.
Thank you, USS Salinger. I recently had the opportunity to attend a very special iftar hosted by the Attorney General Matthew Clack and First Assistant in partnership with Muslim law enforcement officers, Community Engagement Director Yolanda Millville, the Deputy Director Raymond Royster did a great job at making Muslims in attendance feel welcome. I can tell you that it was a heartwarming event. It felt genuine at a time when many from the Muslim community feel abandoned by some of the leaders of the state, and for that we thank you. It meant a lot to us. We would also like to welcome the newly appointed Director of Division of Criminal Justice, Steve Furketic, pardon me, and we have with us New Jersey State Police Colonel Frederick Fife. I saw you somewhere, sir. Thank you. And we have New Jersey Division of Civil Rights Deputy Director Patricia Palmutter, Director of Community Outreach Tisha Leonardo Santiago, New Jersey Civil Service Commission Chair Allison Myers, and Executive Director Dr. Charlie Williams. So the Attorney General was unable to make it. He sends his regards. He just called me while I was in the parking lot, and he sends his regrets for not being able to make it, but he was called for something urgent, some urgent business, and he had to attend to that, I believe, in Washington, D.C. So with that, I request First Assistant Lindsay Rotolo to come to the stage and say a few words.
Good evening, Ramadan Kareem. It is an honor to join you all tonight in the spirit of sharing for this iftar and to highlight the many contributions of Muslim law enforcement officers across the Garden State. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Camille Warwick for inviting me tonight, and I apologize for Attorney General Placken's absence. He really sends his sincere regrets and wanted to be here with all of you, but for all of those of you who have an iPhone, he was in Washington and with Attorney General Garland today for an announcement on that front. So it's my honor, though, to be here on his behalf and on behalf of my colleagues in the Department of Law and Public Safety, who I'm joined with here tonight throughout the room. And of course, to be here with U.S. Attorney Salinger and BCAS, my friends and colleagues. To be here to celebrate and recognize the contributions of the many award winners, many of whom are cherished friends and colleagues of ours, and we're just so thrilled to celebrate their incredible work here tonight. I'd also like to thank everyone in attendance for your commitment to serving your communities, especially while observing the month-long rituals of this holiday. They can be extremely challenging on what's already a physically and mentally challenging career. So your resilience and sacrifice are an inspiration to us all, and I thank you for continuing your service through this month. Each year, especially over these last few years, where I've had the privilege to serve in law enforcement in the state, I've been blessed to have been invited to iftars across our state, and each time I'm just so heartwarmed by the welcome that we receive, the inclusivity, the pride and tradition, and truly the inclusivity of the prayers, and the beautiful teachings of this holiday. Last week, as the Lieutenant mentioned, was the first time that we've been able to return the favor and welcome people to our iftar, what I hope will be the first of many. Yolanda will have to get your mom back. She was an important part of that team too. But it was such a joy to be able to be together with our Muslim friends and neighbors, our friends and neighbors from across multiple faiths, to really come together collectively to reflect on the lessons of this important holiday. Lessons that are universal and relevant to the work that we do every single day as public servants, like the importance of developing moral fortitude, treating people with respect, carrying out good deeds and being charitable to others, and fostering a strong sense of community that welcomes people of all faiths and all cultures. We must hold these principles in our hearts not only during this holy month of Ramadan, but in every day and in every act, because we find ourselves living in uncertain times when bias and hate and division are on the rise, when forces beyond our control but so ever present in our daily lives seem to be driving us to focus on what sets us apart from one another rather than what brings us all together as one. I count myself lucky to be a resident of a state made richer by its diversity, and I'm constantly reminded of the privilege I enjoy being a public servant charged with protecting all of our residents and the diversity that brings us together as communities. As public servants, as members of law enforcement, as people of faith, we have the unique opportunity to discourage and de-escalate division. And instead, we have this opportunity to advance efforts that protect that diversity by developing strong relationships across cultures, across faiths, and bringing ourselves together as one. Together, our impact is far-reaching and can ultimately lead to a better understanding, less hate, less bias, not just among or towards our Muslim friends and neighbors and colleagues, but across all of the diverse groups of people who make this state so beautiful. So thank you again for inviting me to participate in tonight's evening. I look forward to hearing about all of the many accomplishments of our colleagues that we celebrate here tonight, and I wish all of you a joyful and peaceful Ramadan. Thank you.
As I further continue my honorary mention, I would like to welcome our home prosecutor for the Middlesex County, Yolanda Ciccone, First Assistant Chris Kubright, Chief of Detectives Paul Miller, our very own Malia member, Hudson County Prosecutor Esther Suarez, Executive AP Gene Rubino, Chief of Detectives James Parker, Gloucester County Prosecutor Christine Hoffman, Deputy Chief of Detectives Steve Ingram. Thank you for traveling a long way to be with us. Somerset County Prosecutor John McDonald, and my friend Chief Francisco Roman Jr. Hunterdon County Prosecutor Office Chief of Detectives Tim Drew, Essex County Prosecutor's Office Acting Deputy Chief of Detectives Paulo De Sousa, Union County Prosecutor Chief of Detectives Harvey Barnwell, our honorary Burlington County Prosecutor Lucia Bradshaw, and First Assistant Brenda Roman Minari, our honoree from Atlantic County Prosecutor William Reynolds, Bergen County Prosecutor Martin Sulla, and Mercer County First Assistant Prosecutor Jennifer Gallant Mathis. So just a little bit about Malia and where we are. Malia is a national all-inclusive and interfaith law enforcement charity organization. We have gained members as far as California and many states in between, and I never thought that, I've never imagined that when I started this organization 4 years ago. The diversity of this association is our strength and at the very core of our success as an organization. When you see Malia members, you see all shades of people, different ethnicities, backgrounds, and religions. Our common bond is our mutual duty to protect and serve the public. And while we are a charity by title, we're deeply engaged and committed to issues of social justice. Whether it's underrepresentation of people of color in law enforcement, abuse of power by authorities, mistreatment of police officers, or police misconduct, or just bad police practices due to the old school, lingering, jaded police culture. We take responsibility to do our best in working to correct the wrongs wherever they may come from. We understand that what it is to be fair and unfair, both to the public and to the police officers. Our sacred mission most certainly is to leave this profession better than we found it. As an association, we are a more progressive, conscious group of law enforcement professionals, and we strive to adhere to the principles of procedural justice. And with that said, I'm going to pass the mic to my brother, Chief Harrison Dillard from Moravian University, to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, as we gather together for this sacred iftar, a time of reflection, unity, and compassion, I am honored to address you on a topic that resonates deeply within the fabric of our society: the importance of doing the right thing in law enforcement and denouncing all forms of discrimination. In our world, law enforcement officers hold a profound responsibility. They are entrusted with safeguarding our communities, upholding justice, and protecting the rights of every individual, regardless of race, religion, or background. However, this authority comes with the imperative to wield it justly and with unwavering integrity. Unfortunately, we cannot ignore the reality that some individuals within law enforcement have betrayed this trust. Instances of discrimination, prejudice, and abuse of power tarnish our noble mission of law enforcement and erode the bonds of trust between officers and the communities that we serve. Tonight, as we break bread together, let us reaffirm our commitment to doing what is right. Let us stand united in denouncing discrimination in all its forms, whether it be based on race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or any other characteristic. Discrimination has no place in our hearts, our communities, or in our justice system. As we observe the holy month of Ramadan, a time of heightened empathy and compassion, let us extend that compassion to all individuals, including those who serve in law enforcement. Let us strive to build bridges and understanding, foster dialogue, and work together to create a society where justice is blind and every person is treated with dignity and respect. In closing, I urge each and every one of us to be vigilant in our pursuit of justice, to speak out against discrimination wherever we encounter it, and to embody the principles of fairness, equality, and compassion in all our interactions. Together, let us pave the way for a future where the light of justice shines brightly for all. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. Before we go any further, I would also like to acknowledge additional law enforcement executives here with us. Newark Public Safety Director Fritz Frage, South Orange Police Chief Ernesto Morello, Ewing Police Chief Al Rose, Ewing Deputy Chief of Police Jeffrey Jacobs, New Brunswick Police Deputy Chief Mike Baladio, Hillside Police Officer in Charge LaShonda Burgess, and John Stamler Police Academy Director Eric Mason, and Plainfield Police Director James Ebony. Thank you very much. We can now begin our award ceremony, but this year we've done something a bit different for the sake of time, and also especially today, since everyone was running a little bit late. We had placed all the bios of our award-winning recipients in our electronic book, which can be scanned right here from the table, and accessed through the barcode on each table, I should say. The award recipients all have tremendous career achievements, and we regret not reading the bios in their entirety, but it will be impossible to do so in the short period of time we have here tonight. The first award recipient needs no introduction. Article 3 District Judge Zahid Qureshi is an icon for the Muslim community and a role model to the community at large. He's a former magistrate judge, an assistant U.S. attorney, captain in the U.S. Army, having served 2 tours in Iraq, and a litigator prior to that. I've never seen a judge dedicated so much time to community outreach. Having secured a lifetime appointment as a federal judge, many of us would take it easy and enjoy the fruits of our hard work, but he's someone who has stepped up his outreach to the community even more. Judge Qureshi is a man of distinction, and we appreciate him for everything he's done to inspire others behind him. I request him on the stage at this time. His plaque reads, Leadership Impact Award presented to Honorable Zahid Qureshi, Article 3 United States District Judge, former U.S. Magistrate Judge and Army veteran, in grateful recognition of his community outreach and mentorship initiatives. Judge.
Sir.
I'll be brief for a few reasons. One is I plan to have very brief remarks this evening, and two, my notes are on my desk in chambers. So I guess this is the consequence of jumping in and out of court while you're fasting and then rushing here, and I was late sitting in the back. But the reason why I didn't ask my staff to send me my notes is because, candidly, I knew what I wanted to say this evening to all of you, and I can just kind of speak from the heart. I was born here in the United States, and as a child growing up, I never saw a law enforcement officer who ever looked like me, who maybe had a name that was similar to mine or reflected my community in any sort of way. That simply didn't exist while I was growing up here in New Jersey. So when I look across this room and I see, the men and women that are putting on a uniform every day and protecting the community and living and sacrificing and putting themselves at risk to protect us, I have a real sense of great pride in seeing that in all of you. I also think about my children now, that when they look out at the law enforcement community in our state, part of what they're going to see is all of you, something that I never had growing up. And so I want to thank you for your service and all that you've done to protect our community. I'll also say during Ramadan that, look, I understand it's a time for gratitude and it's a time for reflection. And I do think we can be thankful for all the how far we've come, right? All that we've done. And I just spoke a little bit about that in the last 40-some years of my childhood till now. But I also think when we appreciate all the accomplishments that we should do more. There's a lot more that I think we can do in the law enforcement community. I would say for all of us, let's not be complacent. Let's continue to pursue those goals and to achieve whatever the next step is. There's always going to be detractors. I feel like every time we score a goal, somebody's moving the goalposts farther and farther away from us. My only advice that I can give to all of you, which I try to give to myself every day, is I don't care how far they move those goalposts. It just means we have to travel a little bit longer to get to where we want to be. And so if we can do that as a community, if I can be any assistance to Malia or any of you as you try to pursue those goals, I'm an email or a phone call away. Again, this is a great honor. To be honored by your own community is, I think, a different feeling than just being recognized for a certain position. So I appreciate being recognized and sharing the stage with all the honorees tonight, and I look forward to breaking bread with you later this evening. Thank you.
Our next honoree, Prosecutor William E. Reynolds, was appointed as acting Atlantic County Prosecutor in June of 2022, unanimously confirmed by the New Jersey State Senate in August, and sworn in as County Prosecutor in August to a 5-year term. He's a lifelong Atlantic County resident growing up in Brigantine. Under his leadership, the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office has a stellar record of prosecuting hardcore criminals and putting them away where they belong, keeping Atlantic County a safe place for its residents and the visiting public. But what most impressive about the prosecutor to some of us in Malia is his community outreach efforts. He's the first prosecutor that I've ever saw directly addressing homelessness in his county. Not only is he out there in the early morning hours, he has his personnel out there engaged with some of the most unfortunate individuals, trying to get them back on their feet. This past summer and around Thanksgiving, Malia members, with the coordination of Pastor Lou Stragula from the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office, had the opportunity to go out with Prosecutor Reynolds and distribute food to the less fortunate. His enthusiasm in helping others is unmatched. His plaque reads, Prosecutor of the Year Award, presented to Honorable William E. Reynolds, Atlantic County Prosecutor, in recognition of his leadership, commitment, and service to the diverse communities of Atlantic County. Prosecutor, please come up.
Just a second, please. Just.
Assalamu alaikum. Very humbling to be here to share the stage with so many unbelievable honorees and people that came before me already. To be standing before all of you, being a leader of an organization that I just came into 21 months ago is a moment of reflection and gratitude, just as the judge said. With me this evening, I have our team. We created an outreach unit, and Ray Royster from the Attorney General's office was our first director of community outreach. Ray, please stand up. Rick McKelvey, who's our executive assistant prosecutor. Rick, please stand up. Rick and Ray had a dream. I inherited an agency that had so many shining stars in it, and I've been able to help them shine the light on what their dreams were and what they wanted to do. And we bought into a mantra that there was nothing that we weren't willing to do to help serve our community. After Ray was poached by the Attorney General's office, by Yolanda, who's another Atlantic City native, we ascended Siobhan Davis. Sean, please stand up. So Siobhan is our new director of community outreach, and we came to a unanimous conclusion that Atlantic County is such a diverse place, and we have suburbia. We have Blueberry Farms in Hamilton. We have 37% poverty in Atlantic City. We have serious and violent crime, and it really requires a global and universal approach, and not just one size fits all, because there is a very different neighborhood, community, and culture. And I've been so blessed to have a partnership with Councilman Kaleem Shabazz, who's the president of the local mosque, Masjid Muhammad, and the imam from there, Imam Amin Muhammad. They have opened their doors to our office. In fact, we've actually had meetings there with the Attorney General, Matt Black, and himself. And I've been there so many times, just even for Friday prayer service, and have established a wonderful relationship with the Muslim community through those leaders. And I went to several community iftars last Ramadan and learned a lot. And I delved into what it meant to fast, and what it meant to go to the mosque at what time, and what time mattered, and what time really mattered for the community to feel safe, and for the people that were visiting the mosque, how to feel safe, when to feel safe, what the threats were to their community, and listening to everybody and what they wanted to do to be able to celebrate the holy month of Ramadan with their families and with their community. And without the leaders, both inside our office and the leaders of the Muslim community in Atlantic City, I would never be able to be educated and understand that. And to be here for the second year in a row, LT invited me last year. Our retired chief of detectives, Bruce DeShields, was honored last year for a Lifetime Achievement Award. And my eyes were open to this organization, this event. And I said it then, I'll say it again, this is amazing that you're able to have the ability to put this many people in a room who really show how much they care. And that's what it really comes down to, is compassion and empathy. And it's amazing to know that you're able to do it, and do it in such a fashion where you get such support from all communities. Well, in closing, the LT talked about our outreach efforts, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Pastor Lou Stragula, who's the first chaplain of the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office. I poached him from the state police, from Colonel Callahan and Fred Flight, and Pastor Lou has been an amazing asset, and we put together interfaith luncheons and breakfast, and invited everybody, imams, rabbis, Catholic priests, Baptist ministers, and put everybody in a room simply to just break bread like we are this evening, and to get to know each other. And that's never happened before without the assistance of Councilman Shabazz and Pastor Lou and the imam, who would not be able to do that as well. One of the things that I saw coming through to get the position of Atlantic County Prosecutor was the need in Atlantic City to address the homeless and the at-risk to be homeless population. Post-COVID, it exploded. I'm a coach by nature. I coach my son's street hockey, ice hockey, and lacrosse. In fact, I have my team practicing tonight without me, because we have a game tomorrow night. But I saw a situation where there was a lot of people that were really interested in helping people that were on the street in order to potentially to be homeless or at risk to be homeless. And I took a coach position, and I put everybody together, including social services and law enforcement and detectives and outreach from our office. And we met on the boardwalk at 6 a.m. on Friday mornings, and we went and addressed people and say, how can we help you? And we tried to get those people on track, and we found them housing and jobs and IDs and social services. And one of the things that I learned was that they really appreciated that we were there, and they saw the prosecutor's office, and they said, wow, it must be serious, the prosecutor's office here. It's like, no, we're just here to help. And through Operation Helping Hands, through the Attorney General's office, and the Sheriff's Office Hope One, with our office and our outreach unit, we got volunteers. And I didn't have to tell anybody to go. I would send an email, and we literally have dozens of people from our office show up. And then we parlayed that into checking all the street lights in the city of Atlantic City, and we ended up getting a huge allotment of money from the governor's office through CREDA, and we got all the street lights fixed and repaired and brought power to the tune of $8.2 million. And that was just people coming together, showing up to help other people. And it wasn't really about law enforcement or public safety. All it was having compassion for people that needed our help. And I've been so blessed to be in this position to lead and get people to come along, and I really see it every day as an opportunity, and I'm really grateful. And I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your time and attention, and coming here this evening. I look at the director of DCJ, Steve Perketic, and I brought Steve during our prosecutors convention out for an outreach and showed him what we did, and you know, it's really humbling to see that people at that level of law enforcement are really interested in just helping people, because that's all it's about, right? It's helping people. So thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Our next honoree, Prosecutor Latia Bradshaw, is a native of New Jersey and was raised in Lawnside. In 1998, Prosecutor Bradshaw joined the Burlington County Prosecutor's Office, working in different units, rising through ranks and arguing cases in Superior and the Appellate Division on behalf of the state. She took her oath of office as the prosecutor on July 11, 2022. Harrison and I were there on this historic day. Prosecutor Bradshaw is the first person of color and the first woman to be approved for a full 5-year term as a prosecutor in Burlington County. Malia is recognizing the prosecutor and personnel from her office for a particular prosecution of a hate crime state versus Edward Matthews. Mr. Matthews apparently did not like black folks living in the same neighborhood as him and was consistently and violently harassing African-American neighbors, also calling them racial slurs. This was a high-profile case in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. The incident received a lot of media attention. There was some civil unrest, which caused law enforcement on all levels a significant concern. The authorities stepped in and did their job. Mr. Edward was arrested, tried, and convicted, and received an 8-year sentence to serve in a beautiful New Jersey state prison. There are 2 reasons for incarceration: rehabilitation and retribution. And one of the reasons for the retribution is to prevent others from repeating the same unacceptable behavior. While it remains to be seen if our justice system will rehabilitate Mr. Edwards, I believe it's fair to say that we've achieved the latter goal. So with that, you know, I call her to the stage, and her plaque reads, Bias Crime Prosecution Award presented to Honorable Latia Bradshaw, Burlington County Prosecutor, in recognition of her tireless dedication and successful prosecution of hate crimes.
Hello, good evening. So I just want to say that I am a 20-year prosecutor before I was the county prosecutor. And because of that, I've had multiple prosecutions, obviously, and trials, and had some high-profile cases. And the first thing I would always see is the county prosecutor's name in front of the headline. And so it kind of irked me a bit at times. So having that history, I would be remiss if I did not bring the people up with me who did the hard work, the team, part of the team who worked very hard on the investigation and prosecution of this matter, and that is one team member from our office, Sergeant Daniel Scholes, and also Assistant Prosecutor Jamie Hutchinson, who was the lead prosecutor on that particular. So I would like them, as part of the team, to really give you some information about their experience on the case. But before I do that, I really just want to express that before I came into this position as county prosecutor, addressing bias, crimes, and hate crimes was one of my top priorities. And it just seemed like I was in the right place at the right time when I came in, because shortly after I was sworn in, I think it was just a few weeks later, Governor Murphy and Attorney General Platkin had a bias hate crime summit in Newark, New Jersey. And although it was not a request to come, it seemed more like a mandate. I was happy to attend and learned a lot of very valuable information, because before I even became prosecutor, myself and my first assistant had a vision for Burlington County to start in a bias adjustment program, which we have. And so we do have a bias adjustment program, and there's nothing new under the sun. We patterned it after station house adjustments, like in the juvenile cases. And so for low-level bias crimes or incidents, we know that a lot of times those behaviors or that hate speech comes from ignorance and lack of education. And when reviewing all of the vast programs that probation had, we discovered that although if you were involved in a domestic violence incident, there was anger management. Or if you were involved in some other kind of crime and placed on probation, there was some rehabilitation program to address the behavior. And for bias crimes, hate crimes, there were none. And so part of our adjustment program is an educational program, a 3-hour session where individuals can be taught that these words have meaning, to learn the history behind the behaviors that you're exhibiting in the community. And we're not so naive to believe that we're changing hearts and minds, but we're hoping that when people see how seriously we're taking these issues, that behavior in the communities will be changed. And so with that, I just want to give my team members an opportunity to address their experience from firsthand knowledge with the Edward Matthews case. As indicated, this case went viral because Mr. Matthews decided to tell our community, the black community, to pull up after using various racial slurs, and the community did pull up. But that caused a lot of tension and in the community that came to us to address, and so we did.
Good evening. I'm the prosecutor that handled the Edward Matthews matter basically from the beginning. On July 5th of 2021, I received a phone call from the Mount Laurel police regarding Mr. Matthews and incidents that day specifically that they had been dealing with. That day alone, he harassed 2 separate neighbors, and they were dealing with complaints. And we're calling to ask for my approval to put those charges on a warrant, which was actually kind of rare for 4th degree if you've been a prosecutor or officer and you charge. But they explained to me the situation with Mr. Matthews, how they had been dealing with him for quite some time. And this was the only way to protect the members of the community that he had been continuously harassing, which we learned had been for almost a year at that point. It was not just specific members in that community, it went outside of that community, but Mr. Matthews was getting away with it again and again. Mount Laurel finally took the approach. Some of the detectives went as far as to knowing what he was doing, but being able to prove it is a different thing. They went the extra step to put out personal Ring doorbell cameras to try and catch some of the activities that he was doing. One of the detectives, Detective Corsonico from Mount Laurel, sent the letters that were left on these victims' car to the FBI to ask for assistance to help to identify, to be able to charge him with something. And eventually we were. And it was the collaborative effort with Mount Laurel. And then ultimately the investigation was taken over by our office, by the Burlington County Prosecutor's Office, and Sergeant Schulz, in addition to other law enforcement within the office, were able to build the case enough to be able to successfully prosecute it. And he's now serving an 8-year sentence, so thank you.
Thank you for having us here. That was probably one of the more unique cases that I investigated, and that was in major crimes at the time. I had already worked a couple homicides, but that hit differently. And one thing just for the law enforcement officers here that I learned the most was going through these cases, and when you talk to like the individuals and what they were experiencing, gaining their trust was the #1 most important thing that I had to start with, and realizing that what was just a normal job maybe that I ran to, I was a municipal cop for 15 years before that, is probably the worst moment in some person's life there. So don't treat it like it's your 9th call of the day. Not that anyone else did that, but taking extra time to understand that this wasn't just a property damage here, or this wasn't just, you know, a bad word here. And one of the hardest things that I saw actually after we had the press release that he was sentenced was, you'd see comments on social media, oh, now we're going to jail for freedom of speech. That's not what he went to jail for. He terrorized that community, and he was just not a good person, and the people did not deserve it, and it was a proud moment when, I guess that he was sentenced, even though I think I said to Jamie a couple times, let's just go to trial, let's air everything out, let them see, and let him have to explain himself, but we know the right thing was the 8-year sentence, and I'm glad it happened. But thank you everyone for having us, and can't wait to eat later. Take care.
Our next award recipient is Chief Investigator Dave D'Amico, who's a 34-year veteran of law enforcement. He began his career with the New Jersey State Department of Corrections, such as myself. He later joined the Asbury Park Police Department as a police officer, also like myself, except he moved on to bigger and better things, unlike myself. He served over 16 years as a detective with the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office, investigating bias crimes and promoting community relations, as well as his collateral duties of professional responsibility, investigating criminal allegations of law enforcement misconduct. Dave retired and relocated to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. While in Florida, he joined Broward County Sheriff's Department as a deputy sheriff. In 2016, Dave returned to good old New Jersey and accepted a position as the chief investigator for the Middlesex County Department of Correction and Youth Services. Dave has an exceptional resume, certified as a law enforcement instructor and an adjunct professor. Dave is a board member with the Garden State Equality, the co-chair of New Jersey LGBTQ Law Enforcement Liaison Program, and he's the president of New Jersey State Bias Officers Association. Dave is also the executive director and a lifetime member of the Gay Officer Action League, which is Gold, New York City Region 1. Dave has addressed thousands of students, law enforcement officers, and community members regarding his bias crime awareness. He's received numerous prestigious recognition for his work. So that's just a little bit about Chief D'Amico's background. But I have to get personal here. Some of you here today may not know who Sergeant Barry Graves from the Monmouth County Prosecutor Office was. He was a former colleague of Dave. But I do see some old heads in the room who knew exactly who Barry Graves was. We tragically lost him in 2017. And when it came to training cops in our world of narcotics and gang enforcement, there was no one better than Barry Graves. And no one individual had trained more cops from all levels of government than Barry Graves. Literally thousands of federal, state, county, and local officers throughout his career. Barry Graves was someone that all of us, as faculty of Top Gun and Unit the Undercover School, looked up to. To me, Dave D'Amico is the Barry Graves of bias crime awareness. And the cops here that knew Barry Graves also know that you cannot give a better compliment to a fellow cop than to compare him with Barry Graves. Come on up here, brother.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, ready? Thank you.
Wow, you're gonna make me get all emotional before I get up here talking about Barry, and thank you so much for that warm introduction. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Everybody knows that, anybody that knows me, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues in the room, know that I like to talk a lot. But I was told by the team of Malia that we couldn't hold up the dinner that's coming up later, since you were all fasting. But I would like to say this. I'd like to congratulate my fellow award recipients. I'm honored and to be amongst leaders. I'm also humbled to be amongst so many friends and colleagues that are in the room today. This recognition bestowed upon me this evening is definitely undeserved. Nothing I've been able to do in my career has ever been done alone. I've always had an amazing team of people with me. Whether I was a police officer in Asbury Park, I had the amazing team of the Asbury Park Police Department. Whether before that, I was a state correction officer at Royal Wayne ADTC. I had an amazing team of dedicated law enforcement professionals. And the same thing with the prosecutor's office for 16 years. Amazing team that worked with me and that I worked with, and we did things together. And our togetherness makes us stronger. And I learned that a long time ago. Worst mistake I ever made in my life was going down to Florida and joining Broward County Sheriff's Office because I went right back into patrol. I thought I was going back into the funnest part of my job, getting guns off the street, chasing down bad guys, but I was old and the job changed. And I really didn't look good in that ugly dark green uniform. So I decided, I was recruited actually to come back to Middlesex County, back to home. And I gotta say that I am honored to work with an amazing team at the Middlesex County Department of Corrections and Youth Services, an amazing team of professional correctional police officers, investigators, youth detention officers, and civilians who every day go to work and run towards danger when everybody else runs away. I'm remiss if I wouldn't talk about why I became a police officer and what this means to me to be here, doing this job for 34 years. I was a mistake. I wasn't supposed to happen. My mom and dad made me in the backseat of a Chevy, and they were in high school. And so they quit high school in order to support me. And so I was never supposed to be here. But because of my mom and dad and because of what they did, I'm here. And my mom is the love of my life, my rock, my best friend. And she worked 3 jobs in order to support us. And my dad, he wasn't a really good dad. He didn't know how to be a dad. So he wasn't around often. And I was raised by my grandparents. And I'll never forget the day that I was sitting in my grandparents' living room and I was watching on television my hero, Batman. I wanted to be Batman when I grew up. That was my hero. And my grandmother was there with me playing, and my grandfather's Buick pulled up into the driveway, and I ran up to the side door to meet Grandpa. And my grandmother became very nervous. Her job was a stay-at-home mom. And so she got nervous and got up and walked into the kitchen. And I greeted my grandfather at the door, and when I greeted him at the door, he became extremely angry. And he was angry because the food wasn't on the table. That was my grandmother's only job as a housewife, to prepare the food and get the food on the table, and that anger turned into yelling and screaming and then physical violence. And my grandfather picked up the phone, the bell telephone, he started hitting my grandmother with it. And out of nowhere, through the front door of my Bell Place home in South Plainfield, a South Plainfield cop walked in the door. And he saved my grandmother's life. And at that moment, Batman was no longer my superhero. He was that cop. And from 5 years old until the time I couldn't wear Halloween costumes anymore, I was always dressed up as a cop. I always played cops and robbers. I was always the cop. I always knew that's the only thing I ever wanted to do in my life was to be a cop. And then puberty hit, and I found out that I was different, that I was gay. And being gay was not okay. It wasn't okay in my religious values. It wasn't okay in my home with my Italian and Polish family. And so I hid it, and I covered up, and I lied, and I lied, and I lied, and I covered it up. And I did everything in my power not to be gay. But I couldn't change it. So I took the test, and I passed it, and I got that letter in the mail from corrections. I think all the police officers in the room can remember, if you're older, you got the letter in the mail. If you're younger, you got an email or a text on your cell phone, that it was you. You were selected out of thousands and thousands of people to do this heroic job. But I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be easy to be openly gay in corrections in 1989, to serve in a pedophile institution. I knew it wasn't going to be easy to be the first openly gay cop in Asbury, or the first openly gay detective in the prosecutor's office. I knew that it wasn't going to be easy to be the first openly gay chief investigator for the Middlesex County Department of Corrections. But I also knew that I had a team. I had a team with me the whole entire time to get me through it. And some of that team, excuse me, is here today. Excuse me. I'm here and joined by the Bias Crime Officers Association and my very good friend, Reginald Johnson from the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, who's been by my side. Reggie, please stand up, and thank you for everything you've done to the Bias Crime Officers Association. I'm also joined here today by a team of dedicated law enforcement professionals, the LGBTQ law enforcement liaisons. I'm joined here by Janiyah Wade, detective with the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office. I say Monmouth, Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office. Police Officer Gary Manzini from Woodbridge Township Police Department. Correction Police Officer Jeremy August from Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Corrections Division. Detective Brian Holmes. He says police officer, you're a detective. Detective Brian Holmes from the Newark Police Division. This is the team. We go out there every day with one purpose and one cause, and that's to build a relationship of trust between the community in which we serve and our law enforcement agency. And I just want to share one more story. I know Camille's telling me I got to get off stage. I'm talking too much. When I first came back in 2016, I'm sitting in the jail, and I get a phone call from a friend. The executive director of Garden State Equality, Christian Fuscarino, was here tonight, and he said to me, Dave, we have a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, the LGBTQ community doesn't trust the police. I said, well, come up to the jail. Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's sit down in the conference room. Let's talk about it. And we sat down in the conference room, and together as a team, stakeholder and law enforcement, we sat down and we said, let's come up with the LGBTQ law enforcement liaison team. And we started with 4 members of law enforcement. I am so honored and proud to say that today, as I stand up here before you, we have 128 dedicated law enforcement LGBTQ liaisons from 72 departments across the state who've accepted the collateral duty to go out there every day and rebuild trust between the communities in which they serve and their law enforcement agencies. Christian, thank you so much. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having me here tonight. Have a good night and have a good evening. Please be safe.
So when I saw Dave tonight, he said to me, Camille, don't be mad, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna say thank you and get off the boat. I said, okay, fair deal, we'll do that, we're running late anyway. So here we are. Thank you, big bro. The next award recipient is Bob Grice. Began his career with the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office in 1982. Following in the footsteps of his father-in-law, Steve Perlzak, in 1995, Bob was promoted to sergeant. While serving for the Sheriff's Office, he was assigned to numerous positions. In 2008, Bob retired from active duty after 26 years of service. He began his career with his involvement with the Fraternal Order of Police in 1989, chartering Monmouth County Lodge 73, and served as their president and state trustee. He also chartered my lodge in Asbury Park in 2019. In 2014, he was elected as executive vice president for New Jersey State FOP. And on the national level, he serves on the National FOP Recruitment and Pension Bankruptcy Committees and serves as the vice chairman of the National FOP Labor Coalition. In 1996, Bob co-founded the Garden State Law Enforcement Officers Association and has presided as their president since the organization's inception. During the course of his career, Bob has been honored and recognized by several organizations, government entities. Bob and his wife Judy have been married for 44 years and have 3 children, Brooke, Robert Jr., Stephen, and have been blessed with 4 grandchildren. Bob's greatest honor is having the opportunity to serve the members of the Fraternal Order of Police and all law enforcement. And I can personally attest to this because I've seen Bob in action and how much he cares about the people in this profession. He's been there for many of us at a moment's notice, and whenever we needed him, we collectively appreciate all he's done for cops. And at this point, I would like to call a few individuals to the stage. If I call your name, please come up. New Jersey Asian American Law Enforcement Officers Society, Association President Janet Tai. Is she here? Okay. National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives President Giles Shipp. Hispanic American Law Enforcement Association President Lisette Anderson. New Jersey LGBTQ Law Enforcement Liaison Dave D'Amico. National Black State Troopers Coalition Marshall C. Brown Chapter President Stacy Lloyd. Italian American Police Society of New Jersey President William Chavella. New Jersey Dominican Officers Organization President Irsi Velez, and International Law Enforcement Officers Association President Leandro Polino. Bob, please come up as well. I wanted to recognize them with the presidents of these associations.
Yes, sir, please. Yes, sir. Yes. 3, 2, 1, ready, please. One more. One more.
Just like you, Your Honor, I left my speech at home, so I will be short. But I'm very honored to be up here with this group of people that are up here with me right now. And really, I don't know how I got into this situation where I'm with such esteemed, honored guests here this evening. And I really appreciate the honor, and I thank you, Camille, for recognizing me. It was very nice of you. Just a few things I want to share with you. The New Jersey Fraternal Order Police has been a leader in diversity, along with the Grand Lodge, the National Lodge of Diversity. And I just want to say, 4 years ago when I met Camille, we were just on the cusp of developing our diversity committee in our state. And the first person that came to my mind to put on that committee, and I told our president, Bob Fox, is Camille Warwick. Because in my opinion, and I'm sure you all agree with me, he is a leader in the state of New Jersey in diversity and inclusion. And not only that, the community efforts that you put forth with Malia, you're so recognized, especially by the Fraternal Order of Police, of what you do. And I just really appreciate you having me here tonight and having me part of your program. But before I end this, as you read my bio, I was like thinking to myself, what is it really all about? It's about family. We're all a part of a family. And this is a family here too tonight. And without our families, we're nothing. I gotta say that straight up. We are nothing. If it wasn't for my wife and my kids, my in-laws that pushed me into this field and made me what I am today, I would have never been here. And I really appreciate that, and I'm sure each and every one of you feel the same way as I do. It's family first, no matter what. It's always family first. So once again, thank you for having me here this evening. I really do appreciate it, and I won't hold up any more of your time because we want to get to that fabulous meal. Thank you.
Our next honoree, New Jersey State Police Lieutenant Colonel Phil Buck, also couldn't make it today due to unforeseen circumstances, and we will be recognizing him at a different event. Our next honoree, newly promoted New Jersey State Police Captain Stacy Lloyd, is a Newark native and a military veteran. She holds a PhD in philosophy and is currently pursuing her master's degree in mental health counseling. Her research is focused on emotional intelligence, law enforcement, and leadership. In addition to holding multiple degrees, Captain Lloyd is also an IPAC certified life coach and an adjunct professor. She currently serves as the Sergeant at Arms for Noble, New Jersey chapter, as the president of the National Black Troopers Coalition New Jersey chapter. She's the author of I Can Do It, a book which chronicles the tragedies and triumphs in her life, and Arrested by Her Mind, a pathway to emotional intelligence for law enforcement officers. The captain and I often discuss issues of significance in law enforcement today, and I can tell you that there's not too many people I know who care as much as Captain Lloyd in terms of diversifying this profession. And because we have the front row seat to a lot of the shortcomings in our profession, it's particularly challenging for us because we genuinely care and about this profession, and this profession is not just a source of income for us. But she's a fighter, and I know that she's going to continue to do everything in her power to make this profession better for the people, and for that we recognize her today. Her plaque reads Member of the Year Award, Malia Member of the Year Award presented to Dr. Stacy Lloyd, Captain, New Jersey State Police, in recognition of her professional achievements and invaluable contributions to Malia. Where you at, Cap?
Yes, please. One more, please.
Just like a few of the honorees, I left my speech at home. First of all, Camille, you didn't even tell me that I was giving a speech. I just kept seeing you point at the podium. I was like, really? Why is he doing that? So, good evening, everybody. So I was back there typing on my phone, trying to put something together, and my coworker's over there like, she's typing her speech. Yes, I am, because I want to make sure that I'm articulate. So thank you so much. I just want to say, honestly, this award belongs to you, Camille. Like, from the time he started Malia, him and his team, and I remember he first told me about it, and you spoke with so much passion and so much enthusiasm, but the most important thing was to make sure that we brought a voice to the issues that face not only law enforcement officers, but communities. And it takes a special kind of person to be that bold, because you know, you could be ostracized. A lot of things can happen in this profession when you speak out against injustices. So for you to do that, I was willing to follow you anywhere. I could tell you I call Camille probably every other day, and he probably got to get himself ready, because I'm like, oh, we got some work to do, because I'm upset, and there's a few people in here who probably get the same phone calls from me, right, LTC 5? Because I just believe in doing what's right, and I'm continuously calling out what I deem what's wrong. So I'm going to read what I wrote. It's not a lot, because I didn't get too far because I was listening. So I would like to take the time out again to thank Camille for this award, and again, it belongs to him. I remember, again, when he told me about sitting on the panel as a recruiter, you know, to assist with recruiting. I apologize if I didn't do too much recruiting, but he understands that recruiting is my passion. I've been a New Jersey State Trooper now for 20 years, and I can tell you all today that when I first got this job, going through the academy and everything, I never felt like a trooper. Like, to this day, I can tell you I never felt like a trooper. What I felt like had everything to do with my character and what I brought to the table. In the bio, you'll see that I grew up in adverse conditions. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and I talk about it every chance I get. I grew up during the crack epidemic, and I tell young people right now, it's the opioid epidemic. And to grow up in that environment, that's all you know. You feel like that's the world. Everybody's on drugs. There's no money, there's no food, and I grew up in that environment. So law enforcement was never like my career choice, because I saw a lot of things in law enforcement that wasn't pleasing, it wasn't beneficial, it wasn't helping. So I wanted to be an educator or a social worker, because to me they were the ones that were really pouring into children. But it wasn't until I attended Essex County College where I met a trooper who had passion for law enforcement officers, law enforcement departments. But he had been facing his own issues in law enforcement. But his goal was to recruit law enforcement officers to make a difference in law enforcement. He wanted to work from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. And because he explained the opportunities in the New Jersey State Police, I asked him about victim services, because I grew up in a household with domestic violence and sexual violence. And he told me that the New Jersey State Police had a unit for victim services. And I said, well, I'll take it, along with the $49,000 they were starting with that I needed. So, you know, I took the job, and what got me through the academy more than anything was the fact that I knew that I was going to pursue a career in victim services, helping victims of domestic violence and sexual violence, and I eventually made it to that unit. But then I learned that my purpose was greater than that. I understood the adversities that faced young people in inner cities who were what I consider undereducated, malnutrition, and didn't have equal opportunities in employment. So when I had the opportunity to become a recruiter, anybody in here who knows me, they'll probably call me like the queen of recruiting. And the reason why that was important to me is to become a New Jersey State Trooper or to get into any law enforcement department is a game changer. Financially, it's a game changer. I know that it can open up doors. It affords people the opportunity to look at you differently when you wear this uniform, and you have the opportunity to give back to your community. And so, although I didn't feel like a trooper, and I don't know what that's supposed to feel like, what I felt like as a leader in my community, giving back based on my innate characteristics. So I thank you. I thank Camille for this, and I'm just asking that no matter what department you're in or what organization you work for, when it comes to inequality and adversities, I think the one way that we can make a difference in the lives of our young people is to mentor them first, but to really give them opportunities to have access to jobs where they can, so that they can take care of their families, so that they can build their communities, so that they can have food, good food, as opposed to eating what they can, but just giving them access to every opportunity so that they can meet the whole person, which would transcend down to their families. So thank you for this time. Thank you again, Camille, and just keep doing what you're doing, you and the entire Malia board, to include me, because I'm on the board. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we know that we're short on time, and I really apologize because we started late and, folks got here later, and we did not want to start the program without, a proper audience, especially in respect for our guest speakers. So, without any further ado, we're going from one woman who won't back down from a good fight to another. We have our community leader, Southern Jaffa, to recognize, and especially during this Women's History Month, Southern Jaffa. That's my people right there. Come on.
I first started working with Malia during my time as mayor of Montgomery Township when we were looking to diversify our police force. And I benefited greatly from the expertise and advice of Malia at that time. Since then, we've worked together on several issues related to justice and equity, including in my time in the legislature. I'm also extremely proud to be honored at an event which includes one of my personal heroes, Josh Paul, along with so many who have dedicated their lives and careers to justice. Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from Birmingham jail wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." In addition to my public service and advocacy, I teach South Asian Studies at Princeton University. This week, I was teaching about the late colonial and partition period in India. We discussed the 1943 Bengal famine, where 3 million Indians starved to death due to British colonial policy of diverting rice stocks to their war effort and neglecting the civilian Indian population. Whether in India, Ireland, or Gaza, famine is always a policy choice. We are living through one of the great injustices of this century, as over 2 million people in Gaza are not only under threat of being killed by bombs, tanks, and sniper fire, but also being starved by Israeli policy or refusing to allow food aid in, supported by US weapons, funding, and diplomatic cover. In this month of fasting, I can't help but think of the children who are being starved due to our own government's policy. There are a lot of powerful and influential people here. Please demand that our federal elected officials stop arming Israel and call for a ceasefire in Gaza now. Thank you, Malia, for honoring me, and I hope we can all continue to advocate for justice, equality, and safety in our communities and all communities over the world. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Dr. Jeremiah Johnson. please come up and say a few words?
Good evening. It's a privilege to come back to this event. I was here for the very first dinner, and I'm just amazed to see how much it has grown. I was raised in a home by parents who both spent time living in the Middle East. My late mother in Morocco, my father in Jordan and Yemen. Was raised in a home with food and culture. So it's wonderful to be among friends tonight. Excuse me, sorry. Phone closed out. I know I didn't have an introduction because we're short on time, but I'll say that I'm glad to hear so many remarks today in support of ethical policing and First Amendment rights. I think it's important for us to remember that we as law enforcement officers do not lose our First Amendment rights when we are able to speak out on matters in the public interest. Outside of my career, I'm the founder and executive director of the Lamplighter Project, a law enforcement whistleblower organization. Lamplighter Project encourages whistleblowing activity in law enforcement by removing barriers to reporting, preventing retaliation, and elevating ethical officers. I'm a retired police officer. I'm swimming downstream in corrections. I love the institution of policing. It's comprised of courageous individuals who risk their lives in service to others. But what I have found is that moral courage is far less common in our profession. I've had the privilege of speaking to whistleblower cops from around the country. And I find that those who take a stand against corruption and injustice and misconduct represent and believe in the highest ideals of the profession. Many are highly decorated, yet when they speak up, they're marginalized and sometimes experience career-ending retaliation. I found that whistleblowers are rarely thanked, and I'd like to take a moment. If you, in the course of your career, have taken a stand against discrimination or corruption, injustice, or misconduct by holding a fellow officer accountable, would you please stand up so that the room can recognize you for the heroes that you are? Thank you. 53 years ago, NYPD officer Frank Serpico testified before the NAP Commission about corruption in the New York City Police Department. He said, "I hope that police officers in the future will not experience the same frustration and anxiety that I was subjected to for the past 5 years at the hands of my superiors because of my attempt to report corruption. I was made to feel that I had burdened them with an unwanted task. The problem is that the atmosphere does not yet exist in which an honest police officer can act without fear or ridicule or reprisal from fellow officers. We must create an atmosphere in which the dishonest officer fears the honest one and not the other way around. One step towards changing that atmosphere, that culture that Frank Serpico talked about, is to do what we did just in this moment, is by honoring members of law enforcement. I'm honored to be among so many fellow law enforcement executives tonight. If you'd like to speak with me about how you can do this in your organization, I'd be happy to have that conversation. Lamplighter Project also has an annual award for moral courage in law enforcement. And it's a dream of mine that one day a police executive would nominate one of their officers for this award. It's a real privilege to be among so many policing and law enforcement practitioners who uphold these values. I truly believe that reform can and should come from within. Most whistleblowers are They're not the enemy. Research shows that 90% try to speak up internally first, right, before they go outside. So we really need to view these courageous individuals as a police executive's best friend and not a rat or worse. So thank you for having me here.
Director, Lamplight Project, Dr. Jeremiah Johnson, Acting Deputy Commissioner, NYC DOC, in grateful recognition of his courageous support for whistleblower police officers. I must say, I met Commissioner Johnson several years ago when I was going through quite the hardship after reporting misconduct in my own agency and facing severe retaliation for it. It was a time of great uncertainty for me. Having done exactly what I was supposed to do according to my oath and the law, reporting internal misconduct through the chain of command, I was left on an island alone, like most whistleblowers in law enforcement, to endure it all by the very people that were supposed to protect me from retaliation. And in a time like this, support, whether big or small, means everything to you. His organization, Lamplighter Project, reached out to me and assisted in getting my story out even further and on a national scale. My personal story, along with a few other law enforcement officers, was used by the Government Accountability Project to convince Senator Chuck Grassley to introduce legislation protecting whistleblowers. It is true that sometimes it really is the small things that matter. I'll never forget, in the midst of it all, how happy it made me getting a shout out by the godfather of police whistleblowers, former NYPD officer Frank Serpico, and that was all because of the Lamplighter Project. So thank you for all that you've done for me and for the law enforcement officers that were left out to fend for themselves. We've certainly saved one of the best for the last, and Mr. Josh Paul comes to us all the way from Washington, D.C. Mr. Josh Paul resigned from the State Department in October of 2023 due to his disagreement with the Biden administration's decision to rush lethal military assistance to Israel in the context of its war on Gaza. He had previously spent over 11 years working as a director in the Bureau of Political Military Affairs, which is responsible for U.S. defense diplomacy, security assistance, and arms transfer. He previously worked on security sector reform in both Iraq and the West Bank, with additional roles in the office of the Secretary of Defense, U.S. Army Staff, and a congressional staffer for Representative Steve Israel, a Democrat in New York. Josh grew up between London and New York and holds a master's degree from University of Georgetown in St. Andrews, Scotland. He's currently a non-resident fellow at the organization Democracy Now! For the Arab World, also known as DAWN, and a recipient of the 2023 Callaway Award for Civic Courage. Mr. Paul, we cannot thank you enough for traveling all the way here to be with us. More importantly, we can never thank you enough for your integrity, for your moral courage, and for standing up for the people of Palestine, even at the peril to your own career. I would request all Malia members to join me on the stage in presenting this award to Mr. Paul. All Malia members, please come up to the stage. His plaque reads, Integrity in Action Award, presented to Josh Paul, former Director of the United States Department of State, in recognition of his moral courage and care for humanity.
One more time.
1 minute left till the. Well, it's too late. All right. Well, the imam will let. It's good. Okay, it's good. Go ahead and open up your talk, your fast, and Mr. Paul would speak while we wait for them. Go ahead, sir, please.
Thank you. I think I actually prefer not having everyone wait for their dates, so that worked out well. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak, thank you very much indeed. Kamal, for having me, Dr. Joshua, for your kind words, fellow awardees. The two things we've heard this evening, I think, are speaking out for what is right and inclusivity and inclusion. And I'd like to try and make a stab at pulling those together. Before I do, I recognize I'm sort of the odd one out here. I'm not a law enforcement officer, never have been. I've certainly worked very closely with the law enforcement community, both in my overseas roles, worked very closely with the Iraqi police, what a toll they took during our adventures in the Middle East, and with a lot of American police trainers who are out there bringing the expertise from this nation in terms of forensics, in terms of investigations, and so I want to tribute those folks as well, with the Palestinian police and the very difficult situation they are in, and in my most recent role in the State Department Bureau of Political Military Affairs, alongside FBI, the Department of Commerce, Commerce Enforcement Agency, and others looking at export compliance. So first of all, I want to recognize those communities that I've worked with. I also, my other connection here, I guess, and Carl doesn't know this, but it's actually a very deep and personal connection to northern New Jersey. You wouldn't guess it from the accent. But I have many fond recollections of visiting my grandparents in, of all places, Paterson, New Jersey. So I don't know if that makes me a Paterson native, but certainly I had a lot of good times in Paterson as a child. What I would say, based on all of that, is that I'm aware of the challenges that we face, both as civil servants in government, as I was, and as law enforcement officers, that very often you find that there is a tension between the politics and the process, between the politics and the policies. The most vivid example, before my own experience that I had seen of that, was working with the Palestinian police, who are being trained by the US Security Coordinator, and by European police, and whose job, essentially, is to prove to Israel that the Palestinian state, a future Palestinian state, can be capable of protecting the security of Israel. And so what you get is when there is, for example, a Palestinian protest against an Israeli settlement, against the Israeli military, it is the Palestinian police who bravely line up and face off against the Palestinian protesters. Can you imagine what that does, not only to the legitimacy of the Palestinian security forces, but also the courage it takes to take that stand? It's something very significant, and the impact it has on community relations. Imagine being a police force that is not there to serve your community, but is there to serve around your community. So I think in different ways, all of us in the different forms of government service have faced times like that, right? Where we need to make a decision or a choice between institutional and personal integrity. I don't think integrity is a pure thing. In my career, and I'm sure in many of yours, you've had to make compromises. For me, in the past decade, those compromises involved arms sales to countries with poor human rights record, countries where we knew that our arms would be misused to abuse the human rights of civilians or even to kill them. Integrity also does not require perfection. What we mean by integrity must be an obtainable standard, and it must be a practical standard. And while it is characterized, I hope, by honesty, duty, and loyalty, integrity starts with keeping the promises you make to yourself. In my case, the promise that I made to myself was that I would work in the arms transfer field for as long as the good I was doing, or I felt I was doing, outweighed the harm to which I was contributing. I reached the end of that bargain in October last year, as the bombs I had been a part of approving rained down on the people of Gaza. Mr. US Attorney Salinger, you mentioned that there must be accountability for the death of one child in Chicago. There must be accountability for the death of 12,000 children in Gaza too. Let me finish by saying this. When I left government, I left fearing being isolated. I didn't think that many of my friends would talk to me. I thought I'd be an outcast in Washington, D.C., and that I'd be out on a limb. I thought my plan was to go back into the security sector reform world and find some job in some random country where no one would know me and I could continue to work with security forces, as I enjoy doing. But the opposite has been true. Within 2 days of my resignation, I was welcomed into a circle of former US officials, many of them previously high-ranking, who have resigned from government over the course of the past 25 years over policy disagreements they had. And since then, the circle has only continued to broaden, including, Kamal, your warm welcome here this evening in this iftar. So all I can say is I'm grateful for this kind recognition and for what it says, not about my own resignation, but what it says about the impacts of any principled and reasonable stance. It is never too late to do what is right, and when you do what is right, know that there is a community out there, myself included from now, who will support you. Thank you. Ramadan Kareem. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand up for Mr. Josh Paul, came here all the way from Washington with your courage, please. I would request Super Tahir Muhammad up on the stage for the Adhan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Thank you, Trooper Muhammad. The dinner is now being served, but I believe the management will call up tables, I believe 4 or 5 at a time, and you can go ahead and enjoy your dinner now. While I still have your attention for a little bit, I just want to recognize someone very special here today. And the reason why I invited the presidents from different affinity groups to the stage, I want to give a very special shout out to Ms. Hannah Morey, sitting right here. She's the state director for Senator Cory Booker. And some of you may have been following the news about Mr. Adil Mangi, who was nominated by President Biden for the U.S. Court of Appeals for Third Circuit, which is New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And there has been such an abhorrent campaign by some senators to smear Mr. Mangi's name with vicious lies during his Senate hearing. I had the pleasure of getting to know Mr. Mangi, who lives in Jersey City, and is nothing like what some senators are portraying him to be. We have been working hard with the senator's office to gather support from different law enforcement organizations for Mr. Mangi, because he deserves it. He's a great professional. His record speaks for himself. He's a great litigator, and comes from a great background of litigation. And it is because of the relationship that Malia has with with other organizations, we've been able to issue numerous mutual letters of support for Mr. Mangi. And this is my reason for bringing up all the leaders from the Coalition of Underrepresented Law Enforcement Associations and acknowledge them for our shared goals and values. And the simple fact is that together we're much stronger than we would ever be standing alone. Thank you and have a good evening, everyone.
Give this Malia Appreciation Award to Camille Warwick himself. This was an unplanned award. All right, so just real quick, we started this quick because we could keep eating. I know I just wanted to catch everybody before we left. We started this association back in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic. And we came a long way because of Camille. Camille's dedication, commitment, and devotion to this association has been a huge asset to law enforcement and to the entire Muslim American community. With Camille's leadership, we've built many relationships and built bridges for Muslims and law enforcement that I'm sure will have a permanent impact and last for generations to come. He's paved the way for a lot of us. He's been my mentor, and I followed his footsteps ever since I've met him. He shaved bald and I've shaved bald also. I followed him in those footsteps. The one who was able to put everything together tonight, he's put a lot of work behind the scenes. This is our 4th annual Iftar dinner tonight, and we all would not be here today if it wasn't for Camille himself. So, to keep it short so we keep eating, you recognize us all, and tonight, we'd want to recognize you. This award goes to, read it real quick. Obviously, it goes to, it reads, in recognition for your invaluable leadership, exceptional dedication, and unwavering support and guidance, dedicated to Malia. Your vision and hard work created a path forward for us all. You made a difference. Thank you. And this goes to Malia President, Asbury Park Lieutenant, soon to be Captain, Camille Warwick. And if we could just have all Malia members here again to take a huge photo, please, with Camille. Thank you.